Over the last 40 years, the common loon has experienced a dramatic comeback from a species decimated by DDT and being shot for sport to a thriving population that's beloved across the North Country. One woman has been monitoring loons in the Adirondacks for much of that time. She's stepping away, but before she does, let's check in with Nina Schoch on the state of loons in the Adirondacks. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from the Wild Center in Tupper Lake, dedicated to strengthening visitors' connections to the natural world. More at wildcenter.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Monday, July 21st. First up, school districts across New York have less than 2 weeks to figure out how to ban smartphones from the classroom. Jimmy Vielkind reports for the New York Public News Network.
Governor Kathy Hochul says more than 150 school districts have already submitted their plans to separate students from their phones. Each district needs to develop rules about where cell phones will be kept during the school day. Hochul pushed for the measure as part of this year's state budget. She says the state gave districts a model policy to follow and expects everyone will meet the August 1st deadline.
I encourage all the parents to start having conversations with their children this summer. This is going to be like breaking an addiction.
Some school districts already have cell phone bans in place. School leaders in New York City say they will be ready to implement the ban when classes start. In Albany, I'm Jimmy Vielkind for the New York Public News Network.
Nina Schoch is the founder of the Adirondack Center for Loon Conservation. She spent more than 25 years banding and testing loons. First, let's hear her in action, banding loons back in 2012. I went out with her and her crew on First Lake in Old Forge in the middle of the night.
I like loons, and I'm sure you do too. When you hear their call echo across the water, you feel special. But it's a totally different feeling when you're in a boat, someone swoops a net into First Lake, scoops up a loon chick, and plops it in your lap.
Oh my gosh, you little thing.
All right, so what they like, chicks are kind of like owls. They like to have their head rubbed, and it will put them to sleep and keep them calm.
So that's Nina Schoch. She runs the Biodiversity Research Institute's Adirondack Center for Loon Conservation. Her team has banded and monitored more than 200 loons in the park since 1998.
Oh. It's hard for me to hold it.
The chick fights to get away. I pet its gray down, soft like a kitten's, and it quiets.
I can feel the chick breathing. This chick is somewhat of a hostage to try to get the mom and dad in.
Tonight we're trying to catch adult loons to put geolocators on them so they can be tracked year-round. 5 of us are in a DEC motorboat, bundled up in raincoats and winter hats. Banding loons is really a labor of love. Labor because you have to do it at night. It can get cold and rainy, even in the summer. The loons don't want to be caught, so you have to trick them. You play an electronic call to lure them close. Shine a floodlight in their eyes to blind them. And Schoch says you still might miss.
It's almost magical being out with them, but it is very frustrating when they come so close to the boat and you think you have them in the net and the net comes up empty.
The love, of course, is why these researchers have dedicated large chunks of their lives to the iconic birds. Loon Sentinel Gary Lee holds the net like a staff and scans the water's surface.
I mean, I talk to all my birds, you know. I watch 22 lakes, and I talk to all the birds. Go in the same canoe every time, same clothes for in there. They know me. They talk to me when I go out there.
Lee and Schoch worry about loons like parents, even though the birds are thriving these days. Lee says he saw kids on jet skis buzzing loons. One loon on this lake has a broken leg from a motorboat. Lead sinkers and other fishing tackle are poisoning birds. But Nina Schoch says the biggest threat is mercury.
21% of the males and 8% of the females have mercury levels high enough to impact their reproductive success.
Schoch and her team observed those high mercury birds, and what they saw alarmed them.
Mercury's a neurotoxin, so it makes them more depressed and lethargic.
and they don't have the energy to defend the territories well. They don't get up on the nest as much. They just don't have the energy like they normally would to care for the nest and the chicks.
A study released last summer uses Schoch's data to quantify the effects of mercury. It found male loons with high levels of mercury in their blood produce 56% fewer chicks than healthy loons. Female loons, 32% fewer. It's around midnight now on First Lake. I've been petting the loon chick in my lap for half an hour. And finally, we catch an adult. It's a loon they've never caught before. Gary Lee wrestles it into his arms and tucks its bill behind his back.
She's chewing on my pocket. She
Yes.
can't let go.
The adults are very, very strong.
I mean, she's trying to swim on my lap,
Schoch takes all kinds of measurements and samples. Then she straps the geolocator on one leg and an ID band on the other. Then we let the loon and the baby go. Schoch and Lee drop into their seats and take a deep breath.
So, how does it feel to finally get one of those done?
Good.
Fantastic.
Nina Schoch, founder of the Adirondack Center for Loon Conservation, with Gary Lee and her team banding loons in 2012. Schoch announced earlier this month that she's stepping down to work on new projects for wildlife health and rehabilitation in the Adirondacks. I caught up with her recently to talk about the state of loons today. So do you know how many loons you banded over more than 25 years?
It has been hundreds. We've sampled more than we've banded. The chicks, we don't, unless they're old enough to hold adult bands, we don't always band them. But we'll still sample them. And I'd have to look up the numbers, but I think it's like 500 or so. The birds that we have banded, some of them we're still monitoring from back in the late 90s and early 2000s, which is really fun because they have individual personalities and you get to know the birds.
Loons are beloved in the North Country and beyond. And, for tourists who come to visit here and stuff, it's like the icon of the Adirondacks. What has it been like to be associated with that very beloved brand for more than 25 years?
It's been fun. It was not anything I ever intended to do, but they are a very fascinating species to study. And they're a wonderful way to talk to people, about environmental concerns. And people that care for loons are often helping to protect the waters that they live in and care for the environment too. So that being able to use them as a environmental educational tool has been fabulous. I'm quite proud of how far we've come with our science and our education work. And our conservation efforts. We have, the skills that we had developed with the capture, we now use to rescue loons. And every year there's birds that get tangled in fishing line or swallow by tackle and so on. And so now we're rescuing 10 to 20 birds a year. And we're also seeing changes in the rescues related to climate change too. When I first started working with loons, I rarely had a bird that got iced in. And now almost every year we're seeing iced in loons, and we're seeing some changes in the reproductive success. Back in the 70s and 80s, the reproductive success was very high. But now we're seeing, we've done some preliminary analysis and we're hoping to do more thorough analysis soon, where the reproductive success of the Adirondack population has dropped to the point where it's no longer self-sustaining. People think that the population is really good right now because there's so many adult birds. And these birds live 30 to 40 years. So it may be a while before we actually see population impacts from decreased reproductive success.
That's Nina Schoch, founder of the Adirondack Center for Loon Conservation. She's moving on to other wildlife rehabilitation projects in the Adirondacks. But the center she started will continue on banding and studying loons. Music today by Evan Veenstra of Gananoque, Ontario, and Martha Gallagher of Keene. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.